Well, guys, here we are. This is a bonus episode of Season 3 of the Sunday Extra Podcast. Now, if you're watching on video, watching this on YouTube, then you might notice a little difference. We mixed things up. Brian's out sick today, and so that it's easier for me to have a conversation across the table with the two of you, Luke slid over into Brian's seat. So we were having to, adjust the microphone and get all those things right. But there's not 4 of us, just 3 of us. So welcome, guys.
Now you say adjust the microphone. Brian and Luke, I think, are similar height, aren't you?
Yeah, I think we're we're almost the exact same height. But yeah. I remember when we hosted one of our Team Hope parties, we kind of were like, oh yeah, we are like the same.
But your voices are different tones.
They are different tones.
You missed
I can't
seeing
fake it.
Rachel working all those little dials to get the voice dialed in right.
So that's what you mean by okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Little inside stuff here. Well, Thanksgiving was last week. So what did you guys do? Did you eat turkey? Was it turkey? No turkey? Give us the scoop here before we get into the content.
So I grew up in a family that was like turkey, like all the way.
Turkey
it was like
die.
the focus. And then we would have ham. And we visited my wife's family, who is like ham, and they'll throw in a turkey. My dad will like smoke a turkey. And so that was something later in life he started doing. So I was like, wow, we really like turkey here in the Myers side. But we went to my wife's side. It was really fun. They were all about ham. So their ham was really nice.
Okay.
And so, but they did have a turkey there for me to partake in.
Like a good tiny individual
it
turkey.
Was like, it wasn't individual.
Isn't that called like a dove?
Tiny turkey. Tiny turkey sounds better for Thanksgiving.
It wasn't just for me, but they got a smaller bird.
Oh man, sorry. Speaking of the tiny turkey, I saw this video on YouTube that this like mom was like totally trying to prank her kids, and they put like a little chicken inside of the turkey, and it was like, oh, it was pregnant. How sad. And like the kids were like, I mean, it was,
wow.
Yeah, that'll
scar a kid.
That would, man. That would just, I was like, wow, I can't. Then there's like a thing where like, I mean, there's a way like they fill them, right?
The turducken.
Yeah, turducken.
Like the turkey with the duck and the chicken.
Yeah, and yeah, but this was like a scarring for the kids. Okay. So that was not cool. So no tiny turkey for you. Yeah, but you did have turkey.
But we did have turkey. Yep, we're out visiting my wife's family, which was it was fun to be out there with them. It was busy. We missed the travel craziness. I think in DFW on like Tuesday or Wednesdays, the cars were just backed up like an absurd amount, and so we thankfully left early enough to avoid that. But it was still a little crazy going out.
What about coming home? Did you come home at a good time?
Coming home was just fine.
Okay.
Comparatively.
Yeah. How about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, so big shout out to my wife, the Mrs. Good, for Thanksgiving dinner. So I think we were kind of turkeyed out, getting kind of hammed out.
I think I know where she's going. I heard this.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
No.
So we were going to spend Thanksgiving with our elderly neighbor, who's basically our adopted grandfather. He considers us his adopted grandkids. And so we asked our neighbor, we asked Tom, like, Tom, what would you like for Thanksgiving? And he like didn't miss a beat. He was like, chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, pinto beans. So when he's like,
he had
okay,
the whole menu ready to go.
Yeah. So he was ready.
That's
and so
awesome.
when he was like, okay, we're going to do chicken fried steak. So she made chicken fried steaks, mashed potatoes, pinto beans, and it was fantastic. I've still not recovered on the scale, but it was fantastic.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. And you, so obviously it was your neighbor. You were in town, and then you said you guys visited some family out of town.
Yeah. We were in town Thursday, and then Friday drove down to Belton, about 2 hours south of here, just past Waco. And Wendy's aunt and uncle celebrated their 65th wedding anniversary on Saturday.
Wow.
So we drove down Friday, got some time with them, and they had a party on Saturday.
That's awesome.
Fought I-35 traffic coming home Saturday evening.
Yeah.
I think I feel like I always lose that battle on 35, but
Yeah, we didn't go anywhere this year, but everybody came to us. So
they drove up 35.
Yeah. My sister, she came up from San Antonio, and I think she said it took them like 6.5 hours to drive up. There was a ton of traffic. My brother came down from outside of Oklahoma City, and then my parents were in town. They live in California, so we were all we hosted, and I'm not a big turkey guy, so everybody got there for dinner on Wednesday night, and so we did Mexican on Wednesday night. Jessica made some fajitas and some like chicken enchilada casserole, so the whole Mexican spread for Wednesday night dinner. And then we did barbecue, brisket, sausage. There was a little bit of turkey, but I was like, when you got brisket and sausage, I don't need no turkey, So that was no ham this year.
And you guys went brisket and then chicken fried steak.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't. Turkey's like, if you're an ultimate traditionalist, you got to have turkey. But I'm just, I don't mind a good turkey sandwich every now and then, but I'm just not a big turkey eater, so I'd always choose something else over turkey.
Yeah, and for years I had an uncle who has a huge smoker, and so we would have smoked turkey almost every either Thanksgiving or Christmas, and either that or fried turkey. And when you're used to like smoked turkey and fried turkey, then just a regular baked turkey just doesn't. Yeah, there's just not much there. I'm sorry. It's big and it's massive. It's just like a big, massive, not much there, It's.
I'm just. You took me back to. I just had this memory, and I don't remember now if it was Christmas or Thanksgiving. I think it was Thanksgiving one year. I had a relative that was hosting. They weren't the normal hosts. Dude, they microwaved the turkey.
I think I've heard this story.
Okay, yeah. And let me just say that baked
or
smoked turkey is way better than microwave. I wouldn't recommend microwaving the turkey. It was not quite as bad as like that scene on Christmas Vacation when they cut in, he cuts into it and
opens it.
Right.
Not quite that bad, but
and they're eating dry bits of turkey.
Pretty close. So
see, there's really good, there's okay. Microwave turkey, I think you're getting into like edible or unedible. That's a different scale. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're recording this the week of December 1st. It's actually December 1st, but this episode will come out a couple days later, midweek. And Sunday we had a guest speaker. So former staff member at Hope. And I his wife's family is from the area, and so I reached out to him. Gosh, this was sometime in probably October. I was like, "Hey, are you guys coming to Fort Worth for Thanksgiving?" And yeah, are you staying over for Sunday? And he's like, "Yeah, we're planning to come to Hope." And I was like, "Hey, that's great. How would you like to speak?" And so Mike Poff, he's pastor at Cornerstone Church in Warrenton, Virginia. I've been there. Have you guys been to Warrenton?
I have, yeah.
You have, okay. So some of us have been there.
I've been there. To Cornerstone.
You've not yet been there. I love that picture he showed. That was from like sometime in the 20-teens. Was before I was lead pastor. And I'm like, man, who was that young man with a all dark beard, no gray whatsoever in that picture? I was taking a selfie, so I was like right up in the front of the picture. But so Mike, he shared, title of his message was Abounding in Thanksgiving. And he basically shared 10 lessons that he learned in his time at Hope. So he's been pastor there at Cornerstone for 20 years. They just celebrated the 20th anniversary of him pastoring. So I thought before we get to the bonus content, all right, so we'll do a couple things here today. One is I want to review the list, because I loved the list that he gave of his lessons. I think they're universal. So I want to see which ones maybe resonated the most with you guys. And then I want to think a little bit about our approach to Christmas. So, we were just sharing a little bit of our time for Thanksgiving. So some people had a great time with family, had a great Thanksgiving. Others, maybe it was like, oh, we're going to have to do this again in a couple more weeks coming up with Christmas. So just some things to think about as we move towards Christmas. But here are the lessons. I'm going to read them, and then Jeremy, I'll let you go first. Which one or ones really resonated with you? So lesson number 1 is basically be a learner, learn from life. Lesson number 2, get wise counsel. Lesson number 3, honor those servants out of sight. Lesson number 4, the importance of the heart attitudes. Lesson number 5, the value of a posse. Lesson number 6 was ministry comes at inconvenient times. Number 7, love all, help some, train a few. Number 8, be alert to what God has for you today. Number 9, love people and use things. And then his 10th was really like 4B, because he kind of gave it around there. But it was basically God defines success as faithfulness. So that rounds out the 10 lessons that he had learned in ministry. So what jumps out at you, Jeremy?
Sure. Well, can I give a top 3? I mean, there's only 3 of us, and there's 10. So.
Okay, there we go.
Mathematically,
Does that mean we all have to pick different ones?
I don't know.
Okay,
Am
top
I taking,
3.
If I'm taking too many, just you can.
All right.
Anyway, top 3 I would give is number 1, be alert to what God has for you today. I think it's easy for me to look ahead and have my ideas of what I want to see happen, but what does God have for me today? I feel like I'm going to pick the same ones you did because you really emphasized with your voice. But anyway,
I was just reading.
Okay.
It was a dramatic reading.
It really was. But that leads into number 6. Ministry comes at inconvenient times. And I think that's similar to how God teaches us and trains us. That God trains us through the difficult times, not through the times we're sitting on the beach and relaxing. But it's when we're walking through difficulty that God is training us. Ministry also comes at inconvenient times, and I love the story Mike told. That there were times where he was like, "Come on, I don't want to do this now. I'm on vacation," but then he was able to see the fruit of it. Weeks, months, years down the road, of how God used those moments, even though they were inconvenient for him the way he saw it at the time. But the point I really liked was his bonus point that he added, that success is faithfulness. It's not in the numbers. If we're in church work, it's not just about the numbers, or it's not about what we see as success or what the world sees as success, or even spiritually our idea of I need to either see these people make a commitment, or I need to see these people's lives change, or I need to see some kind of outward sign. Our successfulness is being faithful to what God has, because we don't know what God's doing behind the scenes. Our view is very, very limited. So success is just being faithful. And I think I have to remember that at least a few times a day, because I forget really easily, and I probably forget more than I remember.
We like to see the results.
We do, yeah. So, those are my top 3.
Top 3.
Yeah.
Okay, Luke.
Yeah, I think for one of the things that he brought up that has been very key in my life has been getting wise counsel. I think just there's a reality of the verse he talks about is in there an abundance of counselors, there is safety. And I think in major decisions of my life, one of the things that I've done and God has really blessed has been slowing down, praying a lot, and then making sure I have people in my life who can give me counsel. And I've kind of broke it in just like to 3 different areas of people who can give me counsel. Like, one is people who are knowledgeable in that area. Like if it's a financial decision, someone who has a lot of financial acumen, or if it's a parenting decision, someone who has really raised godly kids. And then the second type of counselor is someone who knows me really well, because sometimes I can try to pick who I want to get counsel from in order for them to agree with me. I've been made aware of that trap, so I've intentionally avoided that, of people who know me well and will call me out if like, no, I know what you're trying to do here, and that's a dumb decision, Luke. And so, so for me, that's even to this day, like I'll even ask my parents, because they know me really well. They've been really godly examples to my life. I don't always do exactly what they direct, but I really want to hear from them because they know me really well. Mm-hmm. And then the final area is someone who is a kind of a spiritual leader of mine. And so when I was not on staff, it was talking to a pastor. Now that I'm on staff, it's talking to
yourself.
It's talking to myself. No, it's talking to one of you guys, or
Luke. What do you think about this? Well, Luke, let me tell you.
Or talking to somebody else within the 17:6 network as well. And so those have just been 3 different types of counselors that I've really tried to use in major life decisions. I don't do that for every decision, but for ones that are like, oh, this is going to set direction. I think that's something that he highlighted, that I'm really grateful for those who have given me counsel and how God has blessed that over time.
Yeah, and I think, since you're kind of, drilled down a little bit on that one, I think something I would add to the getting wise counsel, particularly for those that are maybe newer to the faith and just trying to get traction in that area, like what does that look like? When you are getting counsel, it's sometimes you really don't know. You have no clue, right? You're like, I don't know what I don't know, and I don't even know how to think about this. So someone can help you have perspective in an area. But I think one of the dangers when going to counsel, one of the dangers is basically wanting them to tell you what to do.
Yes.
Wanting them to make the decision. And, when people come to me and ask me questions, one of the things I say it like pretty much every time to every person, I say, I don't know what you're supposed to do, but here are a couple of things you need to consider, right? That way it's like, it's their decision. And then when I'm on the other side of it, when I'm getting counsel, what I need to have done is I actually need to have thought about this. Now, it's okay if it's like I don't even know how to think about this, and the counsel they're giving me is like orienting me to this area of life or whatever it is, But when it's a decision that I need to make that I'm responsible for, it really, I think the mature way to do it is, I've been thinking about this. I've been praying about this. And here's what I'm sensing is the direction God's leading me. Do you have any input for me? Like, do you see any red flags or the things I might be missing, And sometimes it's, have you thought about this or this? Oh, I hadn't. So now they gave me something to think about. And then there's times where, this is just more like you're checking in with somebody that is maybe, wiser than you in a particular area. And they're like, no, I think you covered all the basics. It sounds like you know what you need to do. It sounds like God's giving you direction, And like one of my favorite things I'll ask some of the more mentor type guys for me is, I've been thinking about, praying about, am I crazy, or does this like seem like, and it's reassuring when they're like, no, that you're not crazy. That seems like that's what needs to, especially if it's like a bold move that you got to really step out in faith for something. So counsel though is not just tell me what to do.
Yep.
And that's actually, so, for the listeners who are needing counsel, you don't want to ask the person to just tell you what to do. And for the people listening who might be giving the counsel, don't just tell the person what to do. But you can really help them really in the area of perspective, background, questions. Those are some of the best things. It's like, well, here's some questions you need to either get the answer to or at least ask yourself.
Yeah, I think also just the one thing that you talked about is like this is really in the end, you need to take the counsel that you receive and take it to Jesus. Like we're talking about the adventure of walking with God, like how sometimes if we go to counsel, we're like, okay, they told me what to do. That must be what God wants me to do. Like that's not necessarily the case. And so there have been times where I've gotten counsel in a lot of different ways. But as I've been praying about it, it's like, oh, I think God's really leading this way. And that actually may not align perfectly with some of the counsel I received. So in the end, we really need to take the counsel we receive, check it with God's word, and then also pray about it to make sure we're really going the direction he's leading.
Yeah, and I think what you're alluding to is ultimately you're responsible for the decision you make. You can't go back and say, well, Matt told me to,
Yeah.
You hold the responsibility for your decision. So you're the one making that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. That's good. All right. So that was number 1 for you.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay, all right. Well, I mean,
Jeremy did 3.
Jeremy
so.
took 3. Okay. So I think he took the ministry. It comes at inconvenient times, and I'll double click on.
You'll
on
second that.
I think one thing Mike said that I really liked from that one was ministry comes as we have opportunity, not as we have time, energy, or convenience. There have been, I think, times where it's like I literally don't have time and this opportunity comes up, but it's the right thing to do. And so there's some times where it's like, hey, I'm going to put pause on what I had planned in order to make this ministry decision and help advance God's kingdom. But what I've seen is that God has somehow provided the time for what I've given up to help move the ministry forward. I think just like in a practical way, sometimes it's I just finished my master's degree. There were several times throughout the program where it was I had planned to finish like a paper or an assignment, and that was the moment of time where God had a ministry opportunity that came up. And the right thing to do was I'm going to say no to this for a moment and writing this paper and say yes to helping out this person. And part of that was just praying, God, what do you want me to do in the moment? And there are times where God said, hey, I want you to do this thing, and trusting God will provide the time. And he really did. And so, but I think just not as we have time, energy, or convenience, it's the end. We have to be open-handed with those resources God has given us. I think another one that I think that stands out. The God defines success as faithfulness was my takeaway as well. But I think but I think one other one that is a challenge for me is the continuing to have the value of a posse. I think it's not a Lone Ranger sport. And I think, there is a time for everything. My posse has changed over time. When I was in college, I had a posse at the Christian student ministry that I was a part of, and I was really grateful. But then I moved back to Texas, and so just my posse just has looked different over time. But it's really up to me to choose to keep myself in a posse of people. I have to be intentional. If not, I'll just drift towards just kind of focusing on myself. And so I think that value of a posse is challenging for me, of just I need to continue to get otherwise friends in my life, not necessarily counselors, but just people who I can continue to live life with, who are walking with Jesus. And that is a continued area that I will need throughout my life. So I think just one of the things that, I think we've talked about on this show before has been when we look at the books you read and the people you spend time with, that really helps direct your life. And so just really being intentional to get time with people who either I can encourage or they can encourage me towards Christ.
Yeah, he said the life of the Christian is not the Lone Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
He said that, but man, that's just like totally a Western modern thinking to think that, well, just me and Jesus. I mean, nowhere on the pages of Scripture. Yeah. You think about like all of the verses that are one another's. Like you can't do those by yourself. Like if you try to live the Christian life totally in isolation by yourself, you cannot do it. It will not be well-rounded. That's not what God intended. He intended us he created us as relational beings, to be relating to him and to be relating to others. So, that's but we do have to be intentional about it. It doesn't happen accidentally. I think the only time like friends happen accidentally is like when you start school when you're a little guy, and then when you start college, right? At least, I mean, I lived in the dorms, and like so many people I met, like the very first couple of days of school, those were accidental, and some of those became really good friends over the next 4 years. But that's the only time I think it happens without intentionality. So, I think the one I'm just gonna highlight one, Jeremy. So you guys pick good ones. They're all good. I love the list. But this, the learning from life one, being a learner. In fact, it was interesting last night. So my parents are still in town, and my son, he's 8 years old. He's like gotten really interested in playing chess. And so he's been playing chess with my dad. I don't know how many games they've played. And I was actually working on some stuff last night, and Jessica was at a meeting. And so the kids were, my son was hanging out with my dad, and my daughter was hanging out with my mom. And it's totally boy-girl difference, right? So the guys are like at the dining room table playing chess, and the girls are back in Kenzie's room playing dolls, And but then I come out at one point, I'm getting some food. I'm in the kitchen, but I can hear, and it sounded like Kai was doing what guys do typically to younger guys. Like he was trying to figure out how to game the system, so he was wanting to change the rules. And my dad, what? So it's not an exact quote, but what I overheard my dad telling him, I was like, "That's so great." Is he was like, "You know what? Even if you lose this game, but you're learning, you're not losing." And it's basically, he's like, you're still learning how to play. And if you try and change the game, change the rules right now so that you can win, he's like, well, you've won a game, but you haven't learned anything, So just, I think approaching life from, none of us, we've never been the age that we are today, right? Like we've been younger, but we haven't been where we are today. And there's just so many new things. And if you can really just approach life as a learner, and like, what can I learn from this experience? What can I learn from this person? I genuinely think you can learn something from anyone.
Yes.
Now I might not want to take spiritual advice from the guy that changed the oil in my car, right? So I'm not saying that like the learning is universal across, but I guarantee you he knows something. The guy that delivered my mail, I could open up the door and I could learn something from him if I took that posture. Now, he may not like have the best marriage, so I may not want to take marriage advice from him. But if we just have this posture of learning, and which takes humility, to think that somebody might have something to teach us, that there's things I don't know. One of the things that was, you talk to a kid, like one of my kids went through a phase, like they're like, yeah, I know all about that. And I'd ask them like, well, tell me what you know. And they'd tell me one thing. I'm like, well, what else? Well, that's all. Was that all there is? Yes. That's what you know, but you don't actually know all about that. But how easy it for us to keep that same posture. And then just the idea of we can learn from our pain, or we can learn from the pain of others. Right. I so much prefer to learn from the pain of others rather than my own pain. Especially if somebody else really messed up and I can learn from that. I would rather people learn from my pains. I'm like, I already did that, tried it, been there, done that. I can tell you how it doesn't work. Don't do that. Let me save you just at least that. So having this just posture of being a learner is it will serve you very well. And there's always something more that we can learn about God, about life, about ourselves, about how He wants us to be involved. So anyway, I'm super grateful for for Mike sharing these. Then I loved how he encouraged everyone. He's like, make your own list, and then take it a step further. And thank the people who maybe helped you learn that. So it was great. So Mike, I don't know if you're listening, but thank you. Appreciate you and what you shared. So now let's kind of shift gears a little bit, and I want to. We're on December 1st. That's the day that we're recording this. So we're marching towards Christmas. Which, by the way, this little pop quiz here. Anybody do your Advent reading this morning?
Check. Got
Check.
it.
Day's not over yet.
Okay, all right. I like to do my reading in the morning.
I do my reading after breakfast.
I did look. It was like, oh yes, this is the chapter 78, like 77 or 78 verses.
I actually admit I completely forgot about the Advent too, but the day's not over yet.
Hey, there you go.
Still young.
Yeah.
So bread, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, we just basically invited everybody to. In the month of December, starting with December 1st, there's 24 chapters in Luke. And if you read a chapter a day, you get through the entire Gospel of Luke. And just to remind us, who Jesus is, what Jesus did and said, and really what it means. So it's a way to prepare. So that Luke chapter 1 today on December 1st. And then you can read Luke 2 tomorrow. But this is a time of the year where it can get so chaotic. It can get so busy. People, you go from Thanksgiving, and sometimes it feels like the last 6 weeks of the year are just like they're gone, And particularly even in church life and in ministry, I often have just referred to the end of the year as almost like a black hole because people are in and out and they're focused, and it's great. Like we spend time with family, we get to do all kinds of things, but there's not a lot of advancing that takes place at the end of the year. It's more just kind of wrapping up. It can be a time of, it can be a really great time. It can also be a really difficult time. So this Thanksgiving, first time in, I don't know how many years, my whole family was together for Thanksgiving. So it was a really great time for us. I know you might be listening or watching, and this was the first Thanksgiving to have without a loved one because somebody passed away. So there's just we feel a lot of emotions during this end of the year, and so I want to give like three. I probably should have thought of a better title to this, but as we approach Christmas, I think there's three big things we need to consider. Three big things we need to keep in mind. Okay, so I'll tell you what they are, and then we'll kind of double click on them. So first is expectations, priorities, and focus. And when it comes to expectations, priorities, and focus, I think there are angles of approach we can take that can lend themselves to a much more enjoyable time. And then there's ones that can lead us down the path to disappointment, to discouragement, and those things. So let's start with expectations. I think the first question for everybody is like, and we're past Thanksgiving, so we're focusing on Christmas. But what are my expectations for Christmas? And when it comes to expectations, there's kind of two paths. Like there's an expectation and it's met, and then what that equals, us being happy or being fulfilled or whatever you would say. But then the other flip side of that is expectations. We have them, they're not met, we get disappointed, and then we can move from disappointment to discouragement. And then often that also leads us to resenting the person who disappointed us.
Yes. Yeah.
So when I said that word, expectations for Christmas, if you're having trouble identifying and saying, well, I don't have any expectations for Christmas. Okay, well, let me ask you, what would cause you to be disappointed? Like if we get to December 26th and you say, man, I'm so disappointed. Well, what were the thing or things that would cause that? If something did not occur, and you'd be really disappointed with that, well, then that's your expectation, So, if you're saying, like, my expectation is we're going to take a perfect family photo.
That ain't happening in my family right now.
It definitely doesn't happen when you got little kids, right? And if we don't have that perfect family photo, then I'm really going to be disappointed. Or maybe I can't even quite articulate it now, but I would feel disappointed on December 26th if I can't look through my phone and see that perfect family photo, right? So expectations, and really, there's a lot of emotions wrapped up when it comes to just life, but when it comes to expectations, I think there's 4 basic emotions, and this, we can keep it basic for the guys, right? We got mad, sad, and glad, but let's a little bit here. So if a person does not have their expectations met, then kind of 2 big things: you're either angry or you're sad. Right? You're angry because you had a goal that was blocked. Well, I wanted that perfect family photo. And, and we were getting ready to take the photo, and I had the perfect Christmas PJs, right? Picked out, and then the dog barfed on them. Now we can't get the photo. So I'm angry because that dog blocked my goal. I don't even have a dog. I'm just making up an example, right?
It's getting pretty deep here.
Pretty deep here, right? So this is off the top of my head, man. Or you're sad because you lost that thing that you wanted. And then think about the other people in your life who are maybe trying to meet your expectations. I think they can deal with 2 things, either anxiety or shame. Anxiety because they're unclear. Like, I don't know how to please you. I want to please you, but I don't even know how. Or I feel ashamed because I blocked your goal and you now didn't get what you want. So so that's what are my expectations for Christmas? I got a 3-question test here. All right, you guys understand what I'm saying? Expectations. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any expectations you have for Christmas that you care to share?
I think for me, like, I have learned to try to have more realistic expectations. And so I think, especially over Christmas, because I think when I first couple of years of having kids, it was like, oh, it'll be this great time together. I'm like, no, it's actually going to be like I'm parenting through the gift giving. And so I think part of it has been, what I want to have is this restful time where our all family are together. But I think just the age of my kids, having realistic expectations of, okay, they're probably not going to have perfect attitudes throughout Christmas. And so part of it has been, okay, they're not going to have perfect attitudes. So what can I do around that? But I like a legitimate expectation is just, a time with family together that is focused more on each other and less on just the gifts. Mm. And so, but that takes intentionality to have and to set up.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a dangerous question. What expectations? It really is. I think at some point down the road, I've tried to like really peel back my expectations. I think I really try to focus on the other family members having a good experience time, everything that goes with that. So yeah, I'm sure I have expectations or hopes, but I've intentionally tried to peel those back for myself. And I think because typically whatever my expectations are, they don't get met. So, again, maybe I need to go to therapy for that. But I'm not answering your question.
No, that's fine. I think the first thing is to be aware, is like, what are our expectations? So here's the 3-question test for expectations is, like, number 1 is, has my expectation been expressed?
Yes, that's a great question.
So, because a lot of times we have them internal, and we never verbalize them, we never express them, And unspoken, unarticulated expectations are almost a guaranteed for them to be unmet, right? And let me just say, you know, for the ladies listening out there, ladies, men cannot read your minds.
Amen.
Amen. Can I get an amen?
Yes. Amen.
All right. Well, and the same thing true is, guys, ladies cannot read your minds. So we need to express our expectations, whether it's, hey, I really want that chicken fried steak again. No more turkey. We're done with turkey. Chicken fried steak.
It's pretty good.
From here on out, you know, family photo, just a chance to all sit around and, you know, whatever it is, you know.
As you've been talking through this, has been like, okay, what expectations do I need to ask for? Or what expectations do I need to like express right now?
And I think, you know, just I was trying to think through, you know, where do we see this in the Bible, right? So in Genesis chapter 24, this is when Abraham sends his servant to look for a wife for Isaac. He's got some pretty specific lists there of like what his expectations are. And so, I mean, the biblical example we see is expectations, you know, when they are expressed, things go well, right? Then, you know, even another one like God revealing, you know, the battle plan for Jericho. It was like pretty specific what they were supposed to do, right? And this is one of the things I made a joke a couple Sundays ago, probably since our last podcast episode, where I was just like, that day I was on a roll from like obscure things. In the morning, like we were in Leviticus looking at the 7 feasts of the Lord. That night I'm like dropping verses from Ezekiel in the men's seminar that we did. But one of the things I love about Leviticus is how specific God is. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what, like, if you can read it, if you've never read Leviticus, in fact, that's my challenge. You can do the Christmas Advent challenge and the Leviticus challenge. And the Leviticus challenge is read it from the perspective of how clear God is in how to worship him. Like, he covers the finest detail. Like there's nothing is left to the imagination or like, well, we didn't know we were supposed to do that. So when we express the expectations, they have a greater chance to be met. So you hit on number 2, Luke. So props to you. But second question. So question 1 again is, has my expectation been expressed? Question number 2 is my expectation realistic? Is it even realistic? Yep. And unrealistic expectations pretty much won't be met, and those lead to disappointment. In fact, I would go so far as to say that unrealistic expectations are premeditated resentments. Because if I have an unrealistic expectation for you, Jeremy, I'm just coming up with what I'm going to resent, because you're not going to meet it, and then that's what I'm going to resent. But it's unrealistic. So again, if your dad's, if you had an unrealistic expectation, like here'd be a great, if you're a father of young children, not you can comment on how this works in your family now, Jeremy, once I say this, but at the age of my kids, and certainly the age of your kids, because yours are a little younger than that, my expectation cannot be that I'm going to sleep in on Christmas morning. Now, I don't know where John's, 14, 15.
He'll sleep all morning at this point. Yeah.
So you could have the expectation, I'm getting up after 8. If that's an expectation, if my expectation is I'm getting up after, 4:30, no, not quite that early. We said kids.
The problem is my age, I can't sleep in past 8. So my expectations are already, anyway.
But you get what I'm saying, right?
When a 6, 4, and 2-year-old go to sleep on Christmas Eve,
if they've even gone to sleep, right? They've just been
Lord willing,
laying there quietly waiting. Right. Then, or if we have unrealistic expectations for our kids, for our spouses, for our other family members, whatever it is, then those are just premeditated resentments. I'm coming up with something to be disappointed with, and be able to be tempted with resentment. So, question 1, has my expectation been expressed? Question 2, is my expectation realistic? And then question number 3, this is, does my expectation need to be negotiated? Right? Because that means it's not realistic. So if the answer, if it is unrealistic, it needs to be negotiated. If you're not sure, it probably needs to be negotiated. And that means negotiate it down to the realistic one. So, like you're like, we're not sleeping till 9. That's not a realistic expectation. But maybe we're
not 4:30.
We're telling the kids, if it's still dark outside, then you can't get up yet, or you can't leave your room, or we're not going to whatever it is, So again, I like to do this with, this is, mostly audio here. I could show you some pictures. I was joking about the perfect family picture. I remember this one year when the kids were little, and we took them into this like portrait place, and we were getting pictures, and I wasn't even looking for the perfect family picture, but I was looking for at least a good one, right? Yeah. I needed to negotiate down, have a Christmas picture. Boy, we got a Christmas picture. Yeah. It was far from perfect, and it was far from maybe what I wanted, but we have a picture to negotiate from that year. Now, the kids were my kids are only 19 months apart, so, they were probably 2 and 3 or something, and so you can't have big expectations. So, expectations. Anything you guys want to comment on expectations before we move on to priorities?
Yeah, I think it's I think those 3 things of just the realistic, expressed, and negotiated. And what I've found is often I can't negotiate it unless I've expressed it, or I can't. It's also something, as you've been talking about, is it might be wise to also ask your family, what are your expectations? Because, in the same way we can be disappointed, people can be disappointed in us. And we're like, I had no idea you're resentful at me. But part of it is sometimes us initiating of, hey, what expectations do you have? And then being honest and open with what you actually can do. Because there might be, over the holidays, some family members might have expectations of us that we can't realistically do, whether that's financially or time wise, or just with what we have the bandwidth for in this season. So trying to be proactive, that's a way we can also have a good relationship with others around us.
Well, and I think on that, I'll let you jump in, Jeremy, but something Luke just said, I think this is an area that we have to help our kids with too.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, depending on what type of media exposure they have, what their friends are, experiencing, how different families, do things. If the kids' expectation is that there will be 35 presents under the tree for me, that ain't what my kids get, So usually what we try, especially when they're younger, they don't necessarily understand dollar amounts, but it's a dollar amount or a number of presents, just to kind of help negotiate that in their minds. I remember when I was growing up, there was a dollar amount, and the older you get, it's a lot easier. The things you want are more expensive, right? So I would have one small box that was either hit the number, or it was okay, we went a little bit over, but that was the one gift, right? Yeah. And then I'm the oldest, and we're all about 3 years apart. So my sister's 6 years younger than me. She's got what felt like 100 presents under the tree, but they were all little small things, right? Right. That maybe still didn't even add up to the one thing that I got. It's just helping the kids, well, she got this many, he got that many, or you want to help your kids manage those expectations too. And we just tell our kids are 8 and 9 right now, and it's just they know money doesn't grow on trees, and it's just okay, well, what's the 1 or 2 things that you want? And that way the expectation is not there's going to be 1 million, right?
Yeah, along the lines of expectations, and I think both of you guys hit on this, especially with the negotiate, but it's just the recognition that everyone else has their expectations as well. And so, if my expectation is we're going to spend a whole day doing this thing, but there's 4 other people in the family, maybe we can't watch A Christmas Story for 12 hours straight, if that's my expectations, or whatever it is. But recognizing that, okay, other people do have their own expectations. And I mean, a lot of it just comes down to selfishness. My expectations are always most important. Let's be honest.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and I think
thank you for agreeing with me. That mine are.
And this is also, the importance of the hard attitudes. Sometimes when we know what other expectations are, then we can actually look to their interests. But that's something I've seen some people who host really well, who are really hospitable. They're able to anticipate sometimes the expectations of people and then able to meet those interests beforehand. But yeah, it takes intentionality to do that.
Yeah. All right. So those are expectations. That's kind of the first thing. Your expectations, when they're unrealistic, can cause all kinds of heartache and all kinds of problems. So second area is priorities. And when it comes to priorities, whatever is most important is what helps focus the resources. Right? Our resources is time, money, energy. We've only got so much. So once you know what's important, then that's where you focus the resources. And, again, it's like even kind of what we were talking about a minute ago is if you know that particular gift is the most important thing, then it's okay, well, we might can get you that, but that's the only thing, right? Or then you start getting into the it'll be Christmas and birthday, right? Do you ever have those things?
Oh yeah, my birthday is just 2 weeks after Christmas.
There you go. So it's okay, we can go a little bigger. It's Christmas and birthday though, And I think sometimes, the reason why I bring this up, the priorities, is we make the priority happiness or fulfillment. That's actually what we make the priority. I just want to be fulfilled this Christmas, or I just want to be happy this Christmas. And here's a biblical truth that happiness is actually a byproduct. It's not the priority. Okay, so this is the first part of Ecclesiastes 2:26. It says, to the man who pleases him, God gives 3 things: wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. So if your priority is on the happiness, then you might not get it. But the priority, therefore, needs to be on pleasing God. You see how that works? So the priority is not me being happy or me being fulfilled, but me going into this season. This should be our posture in life, but definitely during this season of all the chaos and all of everything, the priority should be number 1 on pleasing God. So then that means the question is we got to say, well, what's pleasing to God, right? So I got kind of 4 big categories here. Number 1 is trusting Jesus Christ. So we look at John 6:28 and 29. Then they said to him, what must we be doing to do the works of God? And Jesus answered them, this is the work of God, that you believe in him who he has sent. So one of the things that pleases God is when we trust his son, Jesus Christ. When we surrender to him and we trust him with our whole life. When we submit to his lordship, which means Jesus is at the center of everything. And we're thinking not just what do I want in this situation, but what does Jesus want? How can I be pleasing to him? So we orient our life around that one, and especially during the Christmas time. Second thing that pleases God is us loving him. Well, how do we express our love? That's through obedience. So John 14:21 says, whoever has my commands and keeps them, he is the one who loves me, and he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself to him. And then John, a few verses earlier, John 14:15 says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. So, this is where love is not just this emotion of, oh, I love you, God. There's action to it, right? So we express our love to God through obeying him. What pleases God? When we obey him. Well, how do we obey him? Well, we read his word and do what he says. And then, so love God and then love people. I mean, that's, we see that as the great commandment. And then in 1 John 4:20 and 21, if anyone says, I love God and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother who he has seen cannot love God who he's not seen. And this is the commandment, that we have love for him. Whoever loves God must also love his brother. So that's just, what pleases him. Well, when we love him and we love our brother, we love other people. One of the most ways that we express our love is by helping people, by putting their goals and interests above our own. That's one of the heart attitudes that you were talking about there, Luke. And then the fourth thing, again, these are big categorical things. The fourth thing is handling my stewardships faithfully. It really pleases God when we handle our stewardships faithfully. 1 Corinthians 4:2 says, moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found faithful. So part of this is recognizing God owns everything, right? I actually don't own anything. God owns it all. He's entrusted the management of things to me. One of those things is like me, my life, my time. My family is another stewardship that I've been given. Raising my kids, I call them my kids, but they're really his kids. They belong to him, and he's given me the stewardship to raise them to become adults who follow Jesus and advance his mission. So those are the things that please God. And if we focus on those, even in the midst of all the chaos of all the holidays, all the expectations and all of those things, then if we do that, if we please God, then that's where the happiness and the fulfillment will come from, rather than trying to just chase the happiness. Thoughts on that?
I think just the expectation I will be happy is a dangerous one in its own sense, because it's an indirect thing. It's a blessing from God, and or like I will be fulfilled. Yeah, I think you mentioned like it's a premeditated like resentment. Like sometimes we can be resentful towards God because it's like, oh, I'm going to be happy from this thing. Well, that thing may not actually produce happiness, because that actually might be outside of God's boundaries. And so I think in some ways it's a seeing it as just like, if God wants that to happen, and or for me, it's been sometimes like expecting God to provide rest during the holidays. Is usually I'll go on vacation and I'll be rested afterwards. But given just the stage that I'm in, that's not a realistic expectation. But part of it is just saying, okay, well, if I do the things God wants, he might allow that to happen here, but he will be faithful in the end. And so there's a level of choosing to do what honors God is the best chance of us being happy. Not chance. God will fulfill us ultimately. It may not be fully here on earth. It will be in heaven. But it's the best chance of an outcome here on earth is just by obeying God's commands.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things that honors God is when we obey his word and we honor our mother and father. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a time when you're kind of like in the squeeze in the middle, right? Where you've got kids and then you've got parents, and you spend a lot of time and energy doing heart attitude number one. But in doing that, you are honoring your parents. When we're kids, Scripture commands that we obey our parents. Well, when you move out and you're an adult and you have your own family, there's not so much the obeying, but there's the honoring. And you're talking about you go on a trip and you take your kids to go see their grandparents, and that really brings a lot of honor and joy, and it's a whole lot of hard work. I mean, one of the things our founding pastor used to say was like, family vacation, that's an oxymoron. Yes. Because you have all your systems and routines at home, right? And then sometimes when you're just like in the throes of it, you're just even trying to survive at home. Then you leave that support system and you leave all the routines and you go to a different time zone and you try to do all that there. And that's like extra work, right? So, there's times when you take kids, especially young kids, out of state to go visit grandparents for Christmas, like you come back dead tired because of all the work that it is. But it is a right thing to do to honor your parents and allow foster the relationship. So, all right. Any thoughts on priorities, Jeremy? Or are you ready to move to focus?
Yeah, just one thought. And you've already hit on this, but it takes so much faith to know that our goal is happiness, but instead of seeking the happiness, I'm supposed to seek pleasing God. And it just takes so much faith that God's not going to rip me off. That there will be that fulfilled promise of happiness and wisdom. So it's just that strikes me. It takes a lot of faith to pursue God instead of pursuing my happiness.
Yeah. So it's having the it goes back to something we've talked before about the temporal versus the eternal perspective. Is that we sort of give up the thing in front of you right now that we think is gonna and bring happiness, to be obedient and walk in faith and trust. It's like, hey, we will receive our ultimate rewards in heaven. Not in this life. So all the things that we give up in the here and now will be worth it because it's about pleasing God and obeying Him.
Yeah, sounds really simple to just recite the verse here around the table. Yeah, that sounds great. Putting it into practice, that's something else.
And I think one thing in practice, I think you mentioned this a couple weeks back at the equipping seminar, was often when we put God first and then others first, our desires are at the bottom. So sometimes what that means is we're having to give up our desires in order to be faithful and in order to put faith in God to be faithful towards other people. And so I think just as we look towards the holidays, just that priority focus of, am I going to put those other things first and be willing to give up my desires for the sake of pleasing God?
Yeah, and that's a good segue. So the last one. So we have expectations, we have the priorities, and then the last one is actually the focus, right? So the big question here is who or what will be at the center of things this Christmas? Who or what? And, the usual answer is me. Of course, me. Now, you talk to really young kids, of course the answer is me. But that's often what our answer is, because it goes back to, we've talked about this before, we all have sad hearts. That stands for selfish, arrogant, and willing to damage other people. So that manifests itself as I want what I want when I want it, I deserve it, and I'm willing to hurt you to get it. And so that's the usual answer. That's so just think when you're out driving on the roads with some of the Christmas, it's like we actually, Luke and I are neighbors, and we live right across the street in a neighborhood from a mall, and I try to avoid like the plague that intersection right there, at Hewlin and South and the mall.
Sometimes I'll be like, oh no,
you come out the other side towards Trail Lake.
Go out the other side, or the other day I was coming home, because this was like during Thanksgiving weekend, but it was what day was it? It was Friday, so it was a big shopping day. I was coming up from the south, and I turned on. I guess it is south. Then you can turn in back way into our neighborhood. I'm not even going to go past up there by the mall, because that it would take me 4 times as long as if I take that back route just to inch my way. Up. I love that Torchy's Tacos right there. I ain't going to be going there for the next month on a weekend, because there's a Hobby Lobby in that parking lot.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And it's crazy in there. But So just as we're driving around, as we're, whatever it is, just be, remind ourselves, okay, if people are not doing what I'm wanting, well, their focus is likely on themselves. And that's actually pretty normal. So what's the correct answer then? Well, the correct answer is our focus should be on Christ. Christmas is the time that we celebrate Jesus' birth. Historians, we don't think he was actually born on December 25th, but it's the time that we celebrate that. And that's what Christmas is ultimately about. In fact, I'm not going to give away too much of it here, but that's this year our Christmas Eve service. We're going to be looking at, the best gift ever came from God. Spoiler alert, the best gift is Jesus. And, and we give gifts because that's part of us being like God. Now there's more to it. And that's, when we get together to celebrate Christmas Eve, but that's what the focus of this time should be. Not all the things that I want, all of the things that, the experiences I want to have, or whatever that is. They're not necessarily bad things. So don't hear me saying that wanting to get together with your family is not a bad thing. Wanting to have a family photo is not a bad thing. Wanting to give a meaningful gift to your kids, and this is like I think one of the things that is watch the Christmas movies, that you're already going to watch, but use this filter of expectations, priority, and focus. What are the expectations, what are the priorities, and what are the focus of the story that we see playing out? And there's a lot of comedic things with Christmas movies. I'll just I hope you don't think less of me, anybody, but my all-time favorite Christmas movie is Christmas Vacation. Yes. And this is Clark Griswold's problem. Is he wants so bad to have that old-fashioned family Christmas.
Perfect Christmas. Yeah.
That perfect experience. And he keeps having expectations that they're certainly not being met. Some of them were, verbalized, some of them weren't. And where are his priorities at? What's his focus? I think it's pretty safe to say that Clark's focus was not on Jesus. It was on other things, and not all of them are bad. But I wanted to do this bonus episode to just talk about this because it's so easy to just get pulled in this direction. We live in a consumer society, and man, I remember, I think it was back in September, I went to Costco and it's like they already got the Christmas stuff up. Like we keep, people are saying now like Thanksgiving sort of gets skipped over, right? Because it's just already Christmas is in full gear before you get to Thanksgiving. And, we're not thankful for anything. We're just ready to consume more. So I think those are just some things that if we're aware of them, then we can deal with them and hopefully have a much better experience for this Christmas.
Yeah, and I think one thing that jumps out to me as you talk about the movies, and especially the Hallmark movies. I don't know if your family watches the Hallmark movies. Oh, wow. Okay. But the expectations are always there, but they're always fulfilled at the end of 2 hours, really an hour 20 of runtime plus commercials. But at the end of 2 hours, the expectations are always fulfilled. And so I think it's easy for us to have that idea of, okay, I understand hardship's going to come, but eventually my expectations are going to be fulfilled. And that's so dangerous to just automatically assume, no matter what my expectations are, at the end of the Hallmark movie, that they'll be fulfilled.
On the same set, by the same actors. No,
Right.
Yeah. So let's remember the real reason for the season and have a good time. And then, I think the last thing, again, I just want to circle back for those who, are celebrating Christmas with, at least one less family member this year. Things will be different, and I think you want to give, to give yourself and your family continued space to grieve. Grieving is a process. It's something that comes in waves, and it even if you lost them in January or February of this year, and you felt like well, gosh, this has been almost a year now. But as you approach, Christmas, the first Christmas without, so I would say set the expectation that we're going to feel some sadness. We're gonna continue to experience grief, and we'll have to move towards a new normal. But the great thing is, but you have the memories of the past years and the great time and experience that you had. So that's our bonus episode for season 3, and we may or may not have another one before we get to season 4. But if not, we'll see you in the new year.